Manga that makes you better at fighting. This was sent to me by my mod, Mikey. So let's go.
November 12th, 1993 was wild. This was a night when a group of weirdos entered a steel cage with the purpose of answering one question. What was the most effective way to disable another human with your bare hands? One fighter was a 400-pound sumo wrestler, another a professional ranked boxer who fought bizarrely with a single glove. There were karate experts, pro wrestlers, street fighters, and the idea that they were all going to be allowed to just fight with no rules, no round time, and no weight limit was insane, to the point that some of the fighters themselves were convinced that this was a scripted pro wrestling style show. A delusion that came crashing down when 14 seconds into the first round, a Dutch Savate fighter's kick exploded across the face of a giant, obliterating everything we thought we knew about fighting. That shock building with each captivating and brutal match that followed, but the biggest surprise of the night came when the entire tournament was won by its smallest competitor, a quiet, softly spoken man
Little Mac!
who had somehow been declared the ultimate fighting champion and yet had barely thrown a single punch or kick. And maybe you don't care about fighting. Maybe this all seems very brutal and
I hear you, hun. You got my vote.
very unnecessary. Well, you are who I'm making this video for. See, something amazing happened here tonight, and if I can do the next 20 minutes right, you'll understand not only what that is, but why it matters in recommending an obscure 2008 manga. Okay.
Wait a minute.
Fighting. Yuzuko Moatari has just transferred to a Japanese high school. Having grown up in Brazil where she spent her early years, well, getting the shit beaten out of her, but in doing so, gradually learning the arts of striking, grappling, and submission. That training manifesting in her love of mixed martial arts. A love she now wants to share with her fellow students through her newly established MMA club. Yuzuko is a delight. She's kind of like a puppy if that puppy was really into UFC and could rip out your shoulder with an armbar. And the exact kind of hero you'd expect from a shonen manga like Teppu. Only this is not our protagonist. Natsuo Oshido is a nightmare. At nearly 6 foot tall, she towers over the rest of her school, but not just in height. Since she was a child, she's only needed to see an action performed once or twice to be able to replicate it perfectly. Meaning, whether it's karate, basketball, or volleyball, she's an elite physical genius that effortlessly surpasses everyone around her.
Does that really take genius though? Okay, is it genius? But like, does it really take genius to like replicate? Like, don't get me wrong, that's impressive as shit. Don't get me wrong, but is that considered being a genius?
But that genius has isolated her from her peers and even her own family, envious and disdainful of her God-given abilities. But that's a hatred she's learned to revel in, her cold, callous nature taking joy in challenging what she sees as regular, untalented people and showing them that all their practice, all their hard work, and all their training are dust in the wake of her natural sadistic genius. In any other series, this would be our villain, but in Teppu, this is our protagonist. The story beginning when Yuzuko, unaware of who and what Natsuo is, invites...
I guess you're right, kind of, because most people can't do that. I guess. I don't know. I thought, like, being a genius is, like, it takes more of, like, the brain, like, it takes more, like, for you to think that through, or, like, have, like, analytical thinking on it. Because I know they call Goku a genius in this fight, in the way he thinks, but he has to analyze to a degree, right? Like, as much as we give Goku being stupid, like, giving flack for being stupid or not all that intelligent, it takes some form of intelligence to look at your opponent and can kind of size them up in a way, right? Characteristics, original, exceptional insight in the performance of some art or an endeavor that suppresses expectations.
Her to join the mixed martial arts club, Natsuo taking this as an opportunity to humiliate the tiny fighter. But that's when she collides with something she's never encountered, a person she cannot dominate with raw talent. And as she stumbles away from the fight, blood dripping from her nose, she's filled with a single obsessive desire.
Oh, so this is like taking, this is like taking the Naruto versus Neji fight and making a manga of it.
Learn everything she can about mixed martial arts and use it to destroy Yuzuko. Teppu is the story of these two characters and the dynamic that forms between them, told through fighting. And I love fighting. I've been doing martial arts most of my life to the point that I now have the combat ability of 2.5 regular people or 18 small children. But I have previously stated on this channel that I'm about as violent as a small tortoise wearing a little cotton hat. And the reason both those statements can be true is, to me,
that's kind of cute, not gonna lie.
Fighting does not equal violence.
I'm just saying, like, the comparison of the tortoise with the thing on his hat, that's adorable.
And what's so compelling about the setup of Teppu is how those two different concepts are embodied by these two characters. To me, there is nothing violent about two consenting people helping each other to get stronger through friendly competition. That is the core of what fighting in martial arts is to me, and also to Yuzuko. For her, MMA is not about surpassing other people or proving your own superiority. It's about focusing on yourself and gradually getting better at something you love, even if you have zero talent in that something. Yuzuko initially having to perform even the simplest actions dozens of times before she starts to understand the techniques. But that lack of talent is important, as it creates a space in which her personal journey of growth can happen. Victory or defeat not being the purpose of that journey, but just a byproduct of it. With that in mind, take a look at this. This is not fighting. This is two people who have lost control of their day, and the random, ridiculous flailing of their bodies is a result of that. The goal here isn't to better yourself or your own growth, but hurting another person with the intention of exerting your own dominance. That's violence, and that's what Natsuo embodies. Violence has become a way to hurt those who have hurt her, initially using her talents to take revenge on the bullies tormenting her brother, but eventually even turning on her own friends, like Sane, the captain of the karate club who embarrassed Natsuo's brother in a spar, only to be crushed by Natsuo
in the truck in the train. train. I think he was having some dude was having a problem with some woman. Dude put on his phone. He said, "World star, world star." The dude heard. He turns like, "You said world star, these nuts." He said, "World star, these nuts."
Her entire class. However, rather than Natsuo's brother being grateful for this, he's humiliated at the thought of his little sister protecting him, and an insidious envy begins to creep into their relationship as Natsuo's brother grows cold and abusive. And as much of a nightmare as she can be, it is kind of devastating watching her crumble in the face of her brother's hatred. Never wanting to feel the pain of that rejection again, violence has become Natsuo's way of isolating everyone around her, the only threat to that isolation being Yuzuko. Natsuo having grown so twisted that she actually envies Yuzuko's lack of talent. She sees how fulfilled the smaller fighter is and the relationships her journey have helped her build, and it maddens Natsuo. It highlights every failing of her own life, but worse, she can't even deal with the problem the only way she knows how: violence. Yuzuko's years of training meaning Natsuo is completely outmatched by the smaller fighter. And not only is this idea at the core of Teppu's story, but it's also what's great about martial arts. Martial arts have never been a way for the elite to get stronger, they're a way for the weak to rise up.
I hope you're taking note of this.
Examples of this comes in the form of my personal
jot down a game proposal. Do you know what that is? Do you have an idea what that is, hon?
favorite martial art, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And if you think this entire video is just an excuse for me to talk about how cool I think Jiu-Jitsu is, only a little. Its origins go way back to the Edo era, a set of throws and grapples that samurai could fall back on if they lost their sword during combat. And it survived right up into modern times when, in the 20th century, a wandering fighter named Mitsuyo Maeda traveled to Brazil on a series of challenge matches, where he befriended a Brazilian family, teaching the sons of the family the art. However, one son was excluded from the training, the sickly, frail Helio. This dude was so weak that he couldn't even run up a flight of stairs without losing his breath. But in secret, his brothers taught him what they had learned, and Helio began to develop a modified style of jiu-jitsu, one that shaved off every excessive movement and strenuous motion, so that even the weakest person could use it to overcome larger, stronger opponents. And it did this by focusing not on traditional punches or kicks, but by dragging your opponent to the ground, then twisting and choking them into submission. And if you want to see just how effective this new Brazilian jiu-jitsu was, then just look at the night of November 12th, 1993, where the first Ultimate Fighting Championship was won by the 176-pound softly spoken Hoisei Gracie, who, through jiu-jitsu, tapped out each of his much bigger, stronger opponents, changing the world of fighting forever. Hoisei being the son of Helio Gracie. At its heart, jiu-jitsu is about overcoming things that are bigger than you. That's why it's a fighting style that makes so much sense for a character like Yuzuko, someone with no natural advantages beyond her own desire to grow. But this also gives her fights a totally different dynamic than the brutal long-range strikes of Natsuo or the full-contact karate of Sane, in that Yuzuko has to rely on grappling, and this introduces something really unique and special into the fights of Teppu. Despite the massive shift grappling has caused in modern martial arts, you still don't see a lot of it in anime or manga outside one or two speciality characters, and this is likely because grappling is simultaneously less visually dramatic than punches and kicks, but also...
Yeah, he's not wrong. Watching people grapple is kind of boring to a degree. It's more of like, we gotta wait this out than, you know, someone doing like a back kick and knocking the person out or something.
Much harder to decode without experience, and Teppu solves this problem beautifully. And to see how, let's first look at how Teppu creates movement in its panels. Everyone's familiar with the idea of motion lines in comics. It's a simple way to carve out a path of action and, for the purposes of fighting, create big moments of singular impact. But what's so cool about how Teppu does this is it rarely uses one big motion line, but instead multiple smaller crescent-shaped motion streaks to communicate the subtle, intricate mechanics of a fight. Take this panel, the twist of a leg as it sends force shooting up the body, resulting in the vicious arc of a foot cutting skyward, the split-second pivot of an ankle creating a chain reaction as an entire body spins backward to avoid that initial attack. It's awesome, but when these motion streaks are applied to grappling, the panels take on a nearly instructional quality. Here we can see how Yuzuko has kicked her left leg off the ground, using that momentum to create a rotation that spirals through her hips, hands, and shoulders, causing a massive centrifugal force through her entire body that she's using to snatch the arm of her much bigger, stronger opponents. And by contrast, look at how much less information we can decipher if we take away those motion streaks. The beautiful thing about this isn't just that it looks fucking awesome, but that it makes grappling make sense. When I first read Teppu, I'd spent about 10 years learning to strike, but grappling was a weird and honestly kind of scary concept to me. But it's panels like these that make me feel like, oh, I kind of get how this could work. Teppu taking the time to explain the subtle intricacies of techniques as well as specific fight scenarios. I remember first reading Teppu and seeing Natsuo get caught in a spider guard, basically a move where your opponent grabs your sleeves and jams their foot into your elbow, turning you into this weird meat puppet. It doesn't really hurt, but you have to spend massive amounts of energy just to stay upright, while your opponent can just lie back and wait for their opportunity to sweep. Then, years later, one of the many times I got my ass kicked in jiu-jitsu was by being caught in this exact scenario, and as my face plummeted towards the mat, all I could think was, wow, this is just like that manga I read. And I would later discover on my reread of Teppu there was even a full-on explanation of how to escape the spider guard. This kind of real-life recognition happened so often during my reread of Teppu, I have to believe that Moriya Ota, Teppu's author, has some real-life experience with martial arts, but unfortunately, a single interview as well as this photo from a 2013 blog post where he shows up at a women's MMA event. But whatever the connection is, his drawings show a genuine understanding of what makes makes these techniques work and how to apply them. And that insight was a huge part of what first opened me up to grappling and eventually led to me taking up jiu-jitsu in 2019. And that ended up becoming this super positive force in my life. When I first took up jiu-jitsu, I was not in a good place, but fighting became this tool to help me rise out of that. I spent a lot of time thinking about why this is when non-combat sports tend to do very little for me, and the best way I can describe it is that if you play a game of tennis, the worst reasonable outcome is that you lose that game of tennis. But with fighting, you could get beat up or choked out or any number of painful, unpleasant things. But that kicks a part of your brain into this survival mode that shuts everything else out. You cannot worry about if you're shit at making anime videos when a large Brazilian man is trying to choke you. And yeah, it's scary, especially in the beginning, but there's also tremendous freedom that comes with existing in only that moment. As your entire world becomes just you and your opponent, and all that anxiety, all the aggression that you might feel towards other people or yourself, it forces it all into perspective, lets you rise past it. And the beautiful thing about Tepu is that it captures that. It shows you the effect fighting has on the lives of each different character. For some, fighting becomes a way of pushing back against societal boundaries, the real struggle not being against any one opponent, but the perception that fighting is not a woman's activity. And as a side note, fuck that. I don't see fighting as masculine or feminine, and if you're a girl watching this and have ever wanted to try fighting for self-defense or...
I don't think fighting is a feminine or even a masculine thing. It's a human thing. People fight all the time. Whether it's argumentative, or, you know, friendly fight in the sense of like playing a video game, or like, it's, you know what I'm saying, it's the duel between two people, whether it be ideology-wise or just something like it's an unstoppable force against something that is unbreakable force against something unstoppable or some shit. I forgot how the saying goes. You know what I'm saying? But like the point is like I don't think it's a masculine or feminine thing. I think it's literally just a human thing to want to prove your point or prove a point to yourself. Either one of those two things.
Fitness or the weird emotional stuff we just talked about, find a decent gym and just try it. The world needs more women fighters. For others like Yuzuko, we come to learn that she doesn't really experience emotion in the
unstoppable force and a movable object. Correct. There you go.
Same way that other
Thank you.
people do, and fighting has become her way of connecting with those around her. And I get that. There is a strange intimacy to fighting that is hard to explain if you've never experienced it. It's like when you fight someone, you experience them in a way that not even their closest friends or families do. And through that experience, you begin to get this really raw sense of who they are, their strengths, their fears, if they're willing to take risks, or how they handle failure. And in that same way, those aspects of yourself are laid bare as well. And so for someone like Yuzuko, fighting becomes an answer to loneliness. The person that fighting affects most, however, is Natsuo. And this is why I think she makes such an interesting main character. Because she starts from such a flawed, broken place, we get to see the journey that fighting takes her on. And where this really becomes apparent is in one of the final fights.
So it's the Japanese voice and the English voice
of the entire series, where Natsuo faces her former friend, Sane. At this point in the story, Sane has hardened every part of herself, becoming the physical embodiment of all Natsuo.
That's kind of cool, not gonna lie.
Sins, everyone she's hurt, all the talentless people she's stepped on. And what's incredible is how the opening action of this fight just seethes with the violent energy of two people who just fucking hate each other. Natsuo lashing a vicious kick at her former friend, which just finds its mark only for Sane to pivot at the last moment, sending the attack sailing past her. Sane blasting back with a counterpunch only to stop her fist at the last second and obscure Natsuo's vision with an open palm, drilling her with a brutal kick to the head, only for Natsuo to block Sane's attack and just smile. It is knife-edge tense, but as the fight drags on, Natsuo begins to feel Sane's resentment with each devastating attack, her old friend's hatred finally sinking in. And as it does, the panels start to bleed back and forth between the brutal violence and all Natsuo's memories that have brought them both to this point. How her desire to protect her brother led to even her own mother seeing her as this violent, unstable person, and how rather than push back on that perception, she's internalized it, becoming the monster everyone has started to see her as. And with that realization, finally, all the pain, all the isolation, it hits her, and it's only through recognizing this, she's able to start moving past it. Both in action and storytelling, this fight to me is one of the best I have ever read in manga, which is why it's such a shame that Tepu actually ends not long after this. Ota reportedly suffered major health issues during Tepu's publication, to the point that the series went on hiatus for 2 years right at the start of this fight. And while his health is obviously more important than anything, and he does conclude Tepu's main story, it does mean that some subplots are left hanging tantalizingly open, and unfortunately, he hasn't worked on anything since aside from 2 Parasite side stories, which are actually awesome. But it is a shame considering not only
it's always the health issues, you're not wrong.
How he really felt like he was coming into his own in the latter part of Tepu, but also in the power of the story he created up to this point. When I talk about fighting as a way to free yourself from your emotional garbage, that's what I see in Natsuo at the end of this fight. She doesn't feel like that violence person anymore. And don't get me wrong, she's still kind of a nightmare, but she's also formed real connections with the people at her gym and started opening up to those around her. And as we head into the final fight of the series, there's this feeling like, wow, she really has grown. That final fight being against the person we've been building to the entire story, Yuzuko.
I think there's a game called that in Human. It came out in 2007.
And we're not going to talk about that fight because I want you to go read this story for yourself. So I guess that's the end of the video. Goodbye! Friends, hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did and would like...
Awesome. Like, subscribe, share, follow, comment. Who guys enjoyed this? I hope you guys learned something. This was pretty cool. I actually enjoyed this one. I didn't get to say a lot in this one because I was just as much learning and listening as much as you guys was, but I said a few things, but not that much. I don't know if I'm going to still make this into a video because I don't like when I don't say a lot of anything because I feel like I just watched it pretty much, but we'll see. So with that said, like, subscribe, share, follow, comment. See you guys in the next one, and I hope you guys have an awesome day. And all great stuff. Explore. Yeah, it's that game with the little alien things you make. So yeah, I'm gonna jump out of here. Have a great night. GGs are on. I'll see you guys. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, I'm out. And thank you, Mikey, for saying this to me. I appreciate it, my dude. Thank you for saying this to me. I appreciate it. All right, I'm out. Thank you, Mike, and thank you all for watching. I'm out.